Welcome to Central Conversations. It's a podcast where we interview interesting people who can help us with the issues that we face in our lives. And if you're all like me, sometimes you don't know what to do and you wonder, what is the wise thing to do? Well, today's podcast is called Walking with the Wise. It's an interview with Steve Abercrombie where he shares from his professional experience, but also from his personal experience, both good and bad, of how we can apply wisdom into our lives, especially as we get older and as we think about our legacy. So I'm really grateful Steve was able to spend a few minutes with us. Let's go right to the interview. Today I'm excited to talk with Steve Abercrombie. Steve is a performance excellence coach and a mentor. Throughout his career, Steve planned and implemented organizational systems designed to drive high-level organizational performance and employee engagement. Steve graduated with a bachelor's and a master's degree from UT. He served as a manager of process improvement at Oak Ridge National Lab for 10 years, and through his leadership was able to provide cost savings over $10 million. He has a Six Sigma Black Belt from the American Society of Quality, and for the past 5 years, Steve has served as a performance and excellent coach. I came to know Steve through our church, Central United Methodist Church, where we've worked together on our staff parish team. And one of the things I appreciate about Steve is he has a heart for God. He's currently teaching a study for our congregation through Zoom. And he also has a heart of a servant and will do anything for anybody. And when I asked a few people in our church, people that they considered wise, Steve's name came up multiple times. Proverbs chapter 13:20 says, walk with the wise and become wise. And so in this podcast today, we're going to be talking about wisdom and lessons that Steve learned through his personal and professional life so that we may gain a heart of wisdom for our lives. So welcome to the podcast, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me. I'm humbled and honored to be asked. There are many in the church who are wise, and I respect their judgment.
Well, it's always nice.
Also.
Yeah, it's always nice when people see you in a way as a wise person. So that's pretty good. And this was just a sample of your resume. You have quite a resume. I'm sure I left things that were important out. Or is there anything that you would like to add either to your resume or to your personal life that people don't know about you? Or
well, no, yeah, the resume, that's actually the last 10 years of my career that I worked at Oak Ridge, and before that I was in various technical positions, and we'll get into that during our discussion, but it was a blessing to be able to work there on it. I'm a longtime member of Central. I've been a member for quite a while, so I appreciate that. I joined when I was 10 years old.
Yeah, and you said
it's been a critical part of my life.
You actually had a certificate, right? Is that right?
Yes, I do.
What certificate?
It's a small book. I don't have it close to me, but it's a small little book. It's got my name in it and the date and some wise passages in there on it. And it's in the Bible that was given to me when I joined. Okay. And I keep it in the shelf in my living room.
That's cool. Well, I know last month you turned 70 years old, and you celebrated your 70th birthday, and that's not always something that we always put out there. But when we talk about wisdom, that's helpful because at least one of the things I've learned as I got older is I've learned some things that I wish that I knew when I was younger. I could talk to my younger self, and so I hope that you can share some stories that would be helpful or some lessons for us. So
sure, I'll sure try. So
well, for people who don't know you, can you tell people about your life growing up and maybe your teenage years?
Okay. I'm a native Lenoir Cityan. I grew up in Lenoir City. My mother was from Lenoir City. My dad was from Georgia, and they met in the early 30s and spent most of their married life in Lenoir City. I was born at the old Loudon Hospital, which is the building's still there and it's used for an assisted living facility now. Born there. lived in 3 or 4 houses while I was growing up, but most of the time I lived in town, close to our former location of Central Methodist. Um, I attended Lenoir City Schools. My elementary school was Nichols Elementary, which is not there anymore. It was actually a block across from Trinity Methodist, where it is located now. There was an old elementary school. Went there through the 8th grade. At that point in time, we didn't have junior high or middle school. They do now, but I went to school there. But I lived a block away from it, so it was a short walk to school and a short walk home. And then high school, Lenoir City High School. My first 2 years was at the facility that was in town on Fifth Avenue, and it also now is an assisted living facility. But while I was in school, they were building what we called then the new high school, which is where the high school is now, and that's where I graduated. I was in the 2nd class that graduated from there. I'm the youngest of 4. My parents had 4 children, 4 sons. There was quite a bit of age separation. It was 18 years separation from oldest to youngest, and I'm the youngest. My oldest brother, when I was growing up, about the times that I remember now, he was already out of the home and started to work, and he moved off for a while, then moved back. And then there's another brother who I never knew. He passed when he was 2 years old. His name was Joseph Edward, but I never knew him. And then there's a brother closer to me who's 6 years older than me. And my growing up years, I can remember more of experiences with him than the other. But I grew up here, had a lot of friends in town, either from church or the community or from school. They're wonderful people. I was blessed to grow up in such a small town that everybody just about knew everybody. And they're good people. I played ball a little bit growing up, played football and baseball. And like I said earlier, I joined Central when I was 10 years old. I guess Mother and Dad thought they were ready for me to take that step on it. An interesting note, my brother closest to me when he was growing up had a little motor scooter that we bought at Sears, or my dad bought at Sears. And they're called motor scooters because instead of motorcycles, because they only had 5 horsepower engines on them. And he rode them around town. And as he got older, he began to drive. And I think I must have bugged my parents enough to get one for myself, which they let me ride in town, which was fun. But a significant event happened when I was 13. I had a serious accident on the motor scooter. You didn't have to wear helmets back then, and I had an accident and had a skull fracture. I was actually unconscious for about a week and a half at the old Loudon Hospital.
Wow.
But made it through that. But that was a big event in my teenage years, early teenage years on it. But I had a lot of good friends, played ball together, went to church together. We used to go to MYF church, Methodist Youth Fellowship, which was very important in our growing up years. But being from a small community is a blessing. It really is to be a part of your family, your immediate family, but you're in such a small area that you have a large extended family, and they're there to support you. And I think that's important.
Yeah. And also you can't get away with anything too, right?
No, I know. Word gets back before you get home. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Now I'm curious, how, because you went to UT, I mean, how did you decide to go to UT when you graduated high school?
well, when I graduated high school, the first thing I did was I joined the Tennessee Army National Guard and the local unit. And right after I got out of high school, I had to go to basic training. And I went to Fort Bragg and Fort Lee, Virginia, and then I served 6 years in the Guard. But when I came back, I had decided to go to UT. My brother, closest to me, had gone to UT, and it was in Knoxville, and it was close, and I didn't really want to leave home, so I decided to go there. So I started there when I came back from basic training,
Okay.
UT.
And
I
so,
would go for a while. Back then it was quarter systems, and I went for a while to UT, and then I'd stop and work, and back and forth. I don't think I was really ready for it at that point in time. but it was because it was close and convenient, I guess. And I had followed UT for years.
Right.
That's why I chose
So did you
that.
you
And I
actually
didn't want to go off.
okay. So you stayed here, if I make sure I understand it right, you stayed here for 6 years before you went to college, right? Is that right?
Partially. I stayed here in January of 1970 after I got back from basic training. In the National Guard, you serve and during the summer.
Okay. Steve, are you there?
Yes.
All right, the blessings of technology. Hang on a second. It's breaking up here. It might be my internet connection.
Okay.
Let me just try something really quick and hopefully that'll take care of it. All right, that might be better. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. It was breaking up a little bit. So I'm just curious. I mean, when you were younger, as you think of yourself as, 17 or 18 and you're making those decisions and you went into college, I mean, what was, some of the lessons that, those decisions and how that influenced you moving ahead, decisions that you were proud of?
Yeah, those are important decisions to make, and you make them early in your life. But before I think you've had the benefits of any of life's experiences to speak of. You make them based on faith, I think, and you have to make those good, solid, serious decisions, and then take actions to support those decisions, to follow through on what you decide. And I think that's important, but I think sometimes that's hard to learn. You have to have some of life's experiences before you learn it, or before you realize what you've learned. I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's difficult when you're not sure what you want to do or what you want to, particularly if you're in a relationship and those such of things. So it's hard to sometimes make those decisions.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So I'm curious, when did you fall in love with Sherry? And I'm curious about, how how old you were when you became, a young father and those types of things.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Let me tell a little bit of my story, and we'll lead into that.
Yeah.
During my early 20s, I would work some odd jobs and go to school sometimes, and I started studying industrial electronics. I got interested in that and technical training. And my oldest brother worked at Oak Ridge, at one of the Oak Ridge facilities. My dad had retired from there, but my oldest brother worked there. And they were hiring some entry-level positions where you'd have an opportunity to go to work and work your way into skills and crafts and other things. So I made application and fortunately was hired. And this was 1974, so I was 23. And I first went to work at Y12, and I worked there for just a few months. And then I moved to K25, which is also known as Oak Ridge Gaseous Diffusion plant. And that's a significant event. When I went to work there, I went into process in through personnel, and the young lady in personnel who was receiving the new employees was a young lady named Sherry Ann McNabb. And we had known each other throughout the years, but casually. And she was 3 years behind me in school, and that's where we met. And for over a period of a year or so, we'd see each other occasionally and speak. And there's a lady that I worked with that was a closer friend to hers, and she got us set up for a date. And we started dating and dated for a couple of years and then married. It's funny, I always say the first person I met when I went to work at Oak Ridge, I married. And she married me. So that's how we met. And I was in my middle 20s when I got married. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm curious, I'm just imagining yourself, if there were any, say, young 20s listening in
Yeah.
on this, what what words of wisdom would you want to share if somebody's in their 20s,
Yeah.
um, starting out
Um,
their career or considering, getting married, those types of things?
yeah, I think I stay close to my family, my parents and my brothers and my extended family. I think stay close to your roots, um, and what you've learned and what you're beginning to carry forward. Give it good thought because it's such a major commitment.
Mhm.
Uh, think through. Don't jump into anything, but give it good thought and stay true to your values that you're developing because you're still such a young person at that point in time that those values are beginning to form in your person.
And I would think that Sherry, just in terms of her relationship with you, and in a sense, she probably affirmed a lot of the similar. You had similar values, kind of where you grew up and those types of things. Correct?
Yes, yes, very much so, very much so. I was the youngest of four, and she was the oldest of four,
Oh,
and it's different personalities, different effects on people. But she came from a solid family. Her parents were solid Christians and such solid background. And her father's passed on now, but the values that they instilled in her were just wonderful. Her dad was a deacon in a Baptist church here in town. They were active in the church. She actually sang in the church. She had a beautiful voice. She chose not to do that anymore after we got married, but she did. I used to say that her parents, they say people are at church when the doors are open. Well, they were there at church when the doors were open, but they also made sure that the doors were open.
mm,
They're an active part of it, and those values that instilled in her were just wonderful. Right. If you knew Sherry, you were blessed
mm.
because she was a giving person.
And I know we're coming to this a little bit later. How many years were you married?
35 years.
35 years.
35.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for those who don't know you, I mean, tell people just, about um, your family and kind of maybe the decisions of when you had your family, those types of things.
Okay. We got married in 1977. Um, we rented a house when we first got married, and we decided to build a house and move in. She worked at Oak Ridge, and I did too. And we decided to build a house, and we did. Um, and that was the next year in 1978. And then she became pregnant during that year, and we moved into our new house. And just a few months later, our oldest son was born,
Uh,
and we decided to start a family, and it was just a blessing. It came together on it. He was born in 1979, and then 1982, our second son was born, and then 1985, our third son was born.
mm,
So we had three sons,
wow.
and it's just a wonderful time in my life and her life too. On it.
Yeah. Now, did Sherry still work, or did she
She worked
have that
she
work?
worked and she worked it until our third child was born, and we decided that with having three at home, that it might be best for her to stay home for a while. So she quit work for a while. She stayed home, and until they all got in school, elementary school, and then she started working at school, helping the teachers, and they just loved her there. She worked at Learncy Elementary School and in the other schools as well. And she worked there until, I guess our youngest son was 8 or 9 or 10, maybe. And then she went back to work at Oak Ridge. She
Okay.
went back to work Oak Ridge, and she actually rose up. She was a secretary, and she rose up, and she was the executive secretary, one of the vice presidents when she passed.
Okay.
So she was had a good career. So she was out for, I don't remember, 7, 8 years, maybe.
Okay.
And then went back to work.
So, as a young father in your late 20s and 30s, I mean, um, sort of how did you balance, work and being at home and trying to be an influence on your boys? And
Yeah, that's a challenge. You're so busy then meeting all your obligations. That's a challenge. And try to prioritize what's important in our lives, in our family lives, and pay attention to that. Spend time with the children, spend time with the family. We were active in church, and actually at that point in time, I'd gone back to school. I was going to UT again, and it's a challenge, but you have to be conscious of it. And you have to use just about all the energy you got to make it happen, because from the time you get up till you go to bed, you're busy, either dealing with work or your family or whatever obligations you have. You have to prioritize what's important and pay attention to that. And some of the other things, I guess you just let go,
right.
in life.
Is there, I'm wondering, with hindsight, are things that maybe you wish you did different, to the way you either spent your time or investments that you made?
Yeah, I think I enjoyed life so much then. It's such a blessing then. But each of my sons are their own individuals, and we did a lot of things together as families. But I think if I had to do it over again, I'd try to spend more time with them individually.
Mm,
Uh, that's important. But again, that you have to mix that in with all the other that you're dealing with. But they're different individuals. Everybody's different. You spend time with them. If I'd had more time, if I'd do it again and had more time, I'd pay attention to that.
right. But it sounds like you try to be an active father. You're just saying that, sort of like doing individual dates or something would be probably.
Right. Yeah. We all go to church together. We all go to events together. Uh, One of them may like hunting and fishing more so than the other, and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Try to pay attention to that.
Yeah. And when you went back to UT, what degree or what did you get then when
I
you went to
I
school?
got a bachelor's and a master's in technical education
Okay.
at UT. Right. And by then I had left K-25 because the government had decided they were going to shut it down. And if you're in your middle 30s and got a family and trying to work on your career and they're closing the doors around you, it's time to start looking for other opportunities. And that's when I had the opportunity to move over to Oak Ridge National Laboratory, where I spent my last 26 years or so there.
Mm.
And I moved over there. And when
Well,
Sherry came back to work, she actually came back to work at Overnale
okay.
there.
Well, I'm curious, just in terms of if you think, I'm trying to think of people who are watching this, maybe they're all different stages of their life. I mean, trying to make those decisions lessons that you've learned at work, either that you could kind of impart to us if we're thinking about our 30s and our 40s about things that we should consider doing or um, making priorities.
Yeah, I think again, staying close to your faith, um, doing things that support that in your work as well and your family, but again, prioritizing what you should be doing and how you go about doing it. Spending time with the people that's close to you.
Yeah.
Um, each time you have a chance to spend time with your loved ones, and actually each time you begin to engage in something at work is an opportunity, and it's a learning experience. And we learn. Life's a learning event, I think. But our learning is sometimes just small incremental steps. And of course, then they accumulate, but recognize that and appreciate that. Yeah, let that be a part of who you are.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder, now where companies you don't often you don't stay with a company for the same length of time as they used to. I mean, are there any skills that you would think that people in the workforce, should learn and develop that have been real helpful for you no matter the different places that you have worked?
Yeah, I think learning the skills to work with others, to be a part of an organization, to support the well-being of the organization, and the skills necessary to do that, and then those carry forward to different opportunities, in within a professional realm or a technical realm as well, to learn how to help and be a part of an organization, and know what skills you have that you can deliver, and stay true to that.
Hmm.
I think it's important.
Yeah. So you have to know yourself and then know sort of what you bring to the table and then
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yeah.
And playing well with others is important, I'm hearing.
Yes, 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 yes.
Um,
But don't let it bother you. You know, when things, not all experiences are pleasant. Some are unpleasant, but you deal with them and go forward,
mhm.
and try and don't carry them forward with you. Learn from them and move forward.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to kind of talk about kind of a sensitive issue just because I know your wife Sherry passed away, and
Hmm.
um, uh, you know, I wonder if you could just give a little background and maybe um, how did you get through that?
Well, it's a work in progress, and it continues on. Sherry got sick uh, when she was in her latter 50s, and developed cancer, and passed away 54 days after diagnosis. So
Mm,
it came as a shock, even though we knew that she was having some serious issues and we were dealing with them, but that event was a shock. I think you have to let time help you, um, help you heal. It's again, it's been 8 years, and it's still a work in progress. I went to a grief program right after it, called Mourning to Joy, from mourning to joy.
mm,
And what I'm finding is that we know what the mourning part is about, but I know she's in heaven, and I know she's okay. And reaching that understanding, and that's what helps bring joy to a person's life. But you got to let God help you. I think God is closest to us during our most serious events in life, and you got to let Him work through with you. Uh, each day is different. Life's different now. You know, knowing who you were before then, as compared to who you are since that happened. You know, we're all interested in the other side, and our faith helps us to look into that a little bit. But we have to let our faith take its part. And like I said earlier, I know she's in heaven, and I know she's okay.
mm.
Um, but that takes a while. It won't happen overnight. It won't. If you have a 35-year marriage, we had a wonderful marriage, and then that event happens, and you're not gonna resolve. You're not gonna develop who you're going to be in 35 days or 3 years for that matter. And like I said, it's been 8 years, and it's still a work in progress. The family is all still close together. Our sons, they're all married now. We got 3 beautiful daughter-in-laws and 6 great grandchildren. Um, we have to let time help us, but it is difficult. But you
Yeah.
have to turn to God. You have to turn to God, and He's the master of this universe, and we have to let that happen.
And I agree, and I guess I'm wondering, since you're right, it takes time to heal and you have to be patient. And sometimes you need other people to come alongside of you. Just
Sure. Yeah.
think
Yeah.
of you probably had your, obviously your immediate family who was you all pretty tight and
Mhm.
supporting you. And did you have some friends in your life who um, came alongside of you?
Yeah, I'm blessed to that. Some from the church, friends from that, and some from work. Quite a few from work were stepped out to help, and then some from the community. But they all did. They all stepped up to help, and you have to let them people step forward and help you. Um, they're there to help, and it's you can't make it alone.
Yeah, agreed. And I was thinking about you've talked a lot about faith and how important it was as a 10-year-old, and in
Yeah,
family, and now and then going through such a painful experience. And I know even just a few years ago, you went to Israel.
I
And
did. I
I'm,
did.
I'm just curious of
I loved it.
how your faith has grown or changed over the years.
I I think if anything, it's grown deeper. I feel more connected to God than ever before. Uh, as I continue to mature as a Christian, as a person of faith, I think it's gone deeper. Yeah. Uh, I saw a TED talk last couple of years that I'd like to refer to a little bit. We chase after happiness throughout our lives, buy a new car, a new house, new clothes, new this or that. But there's a young lady that gave a TED talk, and she had done some graduate research on happiness, what true happiness is, and it doesn't come from those things. True happiness is belonging, being part of something, um, knowing what you can give and how you can contribute to others, give God's love to others, being part of something bigger than yourself, your faith, church, and other ways to help others. And we all got a story to tell. We're all telling a story. And it's important we do that, not only to ourselves, but to our family and our friends, and most importantly, to the future generations.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
I,
God is still there. He's there. He was there then. He's there now.
well, and I'm curious. That's a good segue. I mean,
Yeah.
about stories as you think about um, the way you want your story to be told, your legacy to be. I mean,
Yeah.
I think at least, I just, well, I'm going to be turning 51 in a couple months. And
Oh, okay.
I think earlier on in your life, you focus on trying to build something and make a name for yourself and those types of things, and provide for your family. And then at some point in your life, you sort of shift right to it's really not about you more. It's about other people. And then you try to think
Yes.
of was there a point for you in terms of you began really thinking differently about the way you spend your time, maybe with your kids, your grandkids, what
Yeah.
organizations you're a part of, those types of things?
Yeah. Yeah. I no longer actively work. I've gone through that phase in my life. Um, I do help other organizations from time to time, but I don't actively work anymore because I'm retired. I think again with my family, the beautiful family I have, that I'm there for them. Uh, the three sons have become fine young men, and they're contributing to society, and their wives are as well. But to be there for them when they need me is important, and take the time to spend time with them. But they've got to live their lives. They've got to go forward with their lives. It's really what Sherry and I started in 1977, but they go forward with their lives. And I think that's important. Right. I hope, um, I hope when my time comes that people will say that I grew to be a man of God. And that's a work in progress. It takes a lifetime to do that. that I helped others and did things to support the community, that I was a man of God. Sherry had a couple wishes a couple days before she passed, and she shared with her mother and I. And one was that she wanted to be a great memory, and we know that that's the case, and that's what I hope to be a good memory.
Mm.
Is we're just seeing a part of what God has in store for us.
It's really powerful as you think about that you want your family and others to see God in you, and to be a memory, kind of reflect His glory in a sense.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's not me. It's the blessings of God.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder, if you have other folks who are, say, your age, or trying to just think about what legacy, how they want to live their lives, and what advice would you kind of give to them as they think about their own personal legacies?
Yeah, I think stay active mentally, stay active spiritually, stay active physically. Don't stop. Continue to live your life, because each day is a gift from God. Each day that we're here is a gift and a blessing, and be a part of it. We go through events in life that are serious, and we know that's part of life. We know that they're going to happen, but take each day as a gift. And
Absolutely. And just what you were saying there, you made a conscious decision once you fully retired to kind of
yes,
work part-time. And I know you're an active golfer. I know that, and you're active in other organizations. And I know you serve here at the church. I mean, uh, was that just an intentional, I'm just curious, the intentional decision that you made when you were getting closer to retirement, of how you're going to spend
yes,
your time?
yes,
How'd you come to that
yes,
decision?
yes. I realized I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to sit down and just let life go on. I wanted to be active. I no longer worked for income, but I wanted to be active and to help others. And I looked for opportunities to do that. And that's how I made those decisions.
Okay. Yeah.
And golfing is a work in progress as well, as my golfing friends will tell you.
Well, every time we've gone out, you always hit it farther than I do. So
Well, I know, but you got to go hit it again, and that's the problem with the game.
yeah, that is true. That is true. Well, I really appreciate the time that you blessed us with, and it's these are hard questions to ask,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I hope that people can kind of apply the wisdom that you shared. Uh,
Well,
are there any other things that you kind of would like to say before we kind of sign off?
no, just be thankful to God each day, and thankful for the blessing of the day, no matter what it brings you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for your time, Steve. And um, if anybody wanted to reach out to you and ask you questions, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Probably through my email. It's my last name, abercrombie.js@gmail.com. My first name's James, and all my official business comes out as James. Nobody knows me as James, but that's my email address. That's probably the best way to reach me.
Okay. Well, we'll link to that in the description of the
Okay.
video. So if anybody, you might be surprised. Somebody
Yeah.
say, "Hey, I'm going through this. Give me some wisdom." So,
Yeah. I'd be more than happy to.
all right. Well, thanks again. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Scott.